There is a fuel sitting in a peer-reviewed journal from 2008 with a cetane number of 67. For context, the premium diesel you buy at the pump is a 45. This isn't a lab fantasy. It's a tree that grows 15 feet a year in 46 countries. But if you look at the Rockefeller archive records from the 1940s, you'll see exactly why this superior fuel was scrubbed from your engineering textbooks. It wasn't because it didn't work. It was because it worked too well to be profitable. This is Moringa. You've seen the superfood powder at Whole Foods, but that's the version they're okay with you knowing about. What they don't mention is the MO2.1 protein, a specific molecular chain that reduces bacteria in contaminated water by 90 to 99% in 30 minutes. Or the fact that one tree produces enough oil to run a diesel engine, and enough seeds to purify a family's water supply for a year, enough leaves to reverse malnutrition from a single planting on land where food crops won't grow. I've spent months inside this research. Peer-reviewed journals, Rockefeller archive records, a 1995 German biochemistry paper almost nobody cites anymore. And what I found goes well beyond nutrition. This is the documented history of how solving 3 global crises simultaneously became a bad business model. The oldest documented use of moringa comes from the Indus Valley, around 2000 BCE, northern India, in dry soil where standard crops failed. They called it shigru. They ate every part of it, but the detail that has stayed with me since I first read about it is what they did with the seeds during a drought. When the wells ran dry and the water in clay pots turned brown, they would crush moringa seeds into powder and stir that powder into the water. 30 minutes later, the sediment had sunk to the bottom. The water ran clear. They didn't have a name for why it worked. They just knew it did. And they passed that knowledge forward across 4,000 years. Think about what that actually means for a moment. No pipes, no chlorine, no infrastructure budget, just a seed, a clay pot, and a child who didn't die of cholera that week. I'll come back to the precise chemistry behind it. There is a specific protein sequence on record. But first, let me give you the scope of what this tree became before anyone with money started paying attention. By 600 BCE, Ayurvedic physicians had documented over 300 specific uses, from topical preparations to dietary supplementation during famine. Romans were importing moringa oil from Egypt and India because it stayed shelf-stable for years without going rancid. Across the African Sahel, the belt of semi-arid land below the Sahara where nothing else reliably survived drought, it wasn't exotic. It was essential. In the 1890s, British colonial botanists conducted systematic surveys of the plant's nutritional content. When the numbers came back from the chemists, they were hard to believe. Gram for gram. When dried moringa leaves contained 4 times the calcium of milk, 4 times the vitamin A of carrots, twice the protein of yogurt, and 28 milligrams of iron per 100 grams, more per gram than beef. These figures were confirmed in a 2005 review by Dr. Ajed Fahey at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health across 17 independent studies. The British colonial botanists who first documented the numbers in the 1890s described finding what they called a biological glitch, a plant whose nutritional density had no logical explanation given the marginal soil conditions it preferred, a tree that grew best where crops failed, and fed people better than crops growing in ideal conditions. Nobody built an industry around it. And what I found next is why moringa seeds contain between 38 and 40% oil by weight. In 2008, researchers at Bioresource Technology measured something that made me do a double take when I first read it. Moringa biodiesel has a cetane number of approximately 67. For context, cetane measures how readily a fuel ignites under compression. Conventional petroleum diesel scores between 40 and 55. A higher number means cleaner, more complete combustion. Moringa's 67 is, by that metric, a superior diesel fuel, not comparable to petroleum, better than petroleum. That finding was sitting in a peer-reviewed journal in 2008, and the oil industry did not issue a press release about it. To understand why, you have to go back to Paris in 1900. Here's something that gets left out of most industrial history. Rudolf Diesel did not design his engine to run on petroleum. The Paris World Exhibition, he ran his compression ignition engine on peanut oil, straight vegetable oil, no refining, in front of an international audience. He wrote afterward that vegetable oils could become as important as petroleum for engine fuel. He specifically imagined the developing world achieving energy independence through agricultural production. 8 years later, Henry Ford launched the Model T. Its simple carburetor could run on a range of liquid fuels, including ethanol distilled from corn or hemp, and Ford was public about his enthusiasm. He told the New York Times in 1925, 17 years after the Model T launched, that the fuel of the future would come from fruit, weeds, and sawdust, from almost anything fermentable. He envisioned farmers supplying their own energy, decentralized and independent. Two visions of the future existed simultaneously in 1908. Petroleum, centralized, controlled by whoever owned the infrastructure, and plants, distributed, owned by whoever owned land. One man made sure only one of those futures arrived. John D. Rockefeller founded Standard Oil in Cleveland in 1870. By 1880, he controlled 90% of U.S. oil refining, not by making better oil, but by controlling the infrastructure around oil. Pipelines, refineries, distribution networks across 30 states. He sold kerosene below cost until competitors collapsed, then raised prices once the competition was gone. When electric lighting began replacing kerosene lamps, and the empire needed a new product, gasoline, a waste byproduct that had been literally burned off as a nuisance, became that product. The automobile rescued Standard Oil, and Standard Oil shaped the automobile in return. In 1913, the Rockefeller Foundation was established with an initial endowment of $182 million, roughly $5 billion in today's terms. The stated mission was the advancement of human knowledge. But before I get into what the foundation actually funded, I want to finish the Diesel story, because the way it ends tells you something important about what happens to people who build alternatives to petroleum infrastructure. Rudolf Diesel boarded a ship in Antwerp on the evening of September 29, 1913, crossing to England. He dined alone that night, was observed looking agitated, and was never seen again after retiring to his cabin. His body was recovered 11 days later from the North Sea. Before he left, he had given his wife Martha a specific instruction: open a particular bag 2 weeks after his departure. When she opened it, she found 200,000 marks in cash, and bank statements showing their accounts were completely empty. He had transferred everything to his family in a pre-arranged handoff, and died broke, while the engine that bore his name was generating fortunes for everyone who had commercialized it, except him. No investigation was opened. What is documented is that Diesel died financially destroyed, right as the petroleum industry was standardizing on the infrastructure that would make his plant oil vision permanently obsolete. The timing is what it is. By 1920, the oil lobby had an accidental ally: prohibition. The Volstead Act made farm-based alcohol distillation legally catastrophic. While the ethanol supply chain was strangled, Standard Oil's successor companies spent 13 years optimizing automobile engines exclusively for gasoline and building filling station infrastructure nationwide. By the time Prohibition was repealed in 1933, gasoline was the only option. Not because it was better, but because every alternative had been starved of infrastructure during the exact decade when automobile culture was being permanently established. You cannot monopolize a tree. That sentence is the economic logic behind everything that follows. Between 1943 and 1963, the Rockefeller Foundation spent $16 million on agricultural research. Every project carried the same design logic: make farming dependent on petroleum. Tractors replaced draft animals. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizers manufactured from natural gas replaced traditional soil management. Pesticides derived from petroleum byproducts replaced integrated pest control. Every step of the food production cycle became a petroleum purchase. They didn't solve hunger. They created a subscription model for soil. I did not know this detail going in, and I had to sit with it for a moment. The architect of the Green Revolution, Dr. Norman Borlaug, was recruited directly from DuPont, a petrochemical company, by a foundation built on oil money, to design an agricultural system that required petrochemical inputs at every stage. And that may be coincidence. It is a remarkable coincidence. Between 1960 and 1990, the foundation exported this model to India, Pakistan, the Philippines, and across Africa. Traditional agricultural systems, food forests, polyculture plots, the agroforestry practices that had kept communities fed for millennia, were officially classified as primitive. In India, Moringa trees that had been planted along field borders as nitrogen fixers, nutrition sources, and windbreaks for generations were cleared to make room for hybrid crop rows requiring constant chemical inputs. By 1980, countries that had fed themselves for 4,000 years were importing both food and fuel. Let me tell you about a protein called MO2.1. In 1995, a team at the German Federal Research Center for Nutrition in Karlsruhe published a study in Biochimica et Biophysica Acta, characterizing the active agent in Moringa's water purification. It's a small cationic protein, positively charged. When introduced into water containing bacteria or suspended particles, which are typically negatively charged, the protein binds to them, causes them to clump together, and the clumps sink. The technical term is flocculation. The practical result, documented across multiple field studies, is a 90 to 99% reduction in bacteria within 30 minutes. This protein has a Swiss Prot database accession number, P24303. This is not folk medicine. This is characterized molecular biology, documented in international biochemistry literature, and with a specific protein sequence on record. A single crushed seed treats 1 liter of contaminated water. One mature tree produces enough seeds to purify water for dozens of families annually, with zero infrastructure, zero ongoing cost, zero energy input. Let that land for a second. A municipal water treatment plant for a community of 50,000 people costs between $20 million and $80 million to build, and requires continuous chemical inputs and electrical power to operate. The MO2.1 protein does the bacterial elimination step, the hardest part, with a seed that the tree produces for free, in perpetuity, for 20 years from a single planting. There is no business model here. There is no quarterly earnings call. And that, structurally, is the problem. Let me do the math on the fuel side, because I think it's the most overlooked part of this story, and the numbers are striking. One mature Moringa tree yields 400 to 600 seed pods annually. Each pod contains 15 to 20 seeds. Each seed is roughly 40% oil by weight. Working through those numbers, one tree produces 3 to 5 liters of cold-pressed oil per year. That's enough to run a small diesel generator for meaningful hours, enough to power lighting, run a water pump, charge phones, refrigerate medicine. It is not grid-scale energy. But for a village in northern Kenya or rural Haiti, the difference between diesel you have to buy and diesel you grow is the difference between dependency and autonomy. And that distinction is precisely why this tree makes a bad product for anyone trying to sell you something. To plant 100 trees on land unsuitable for food crops, and you have a community energy supply. The seed cake left after pressing feeds livestock. The tree fixes nitrogen into the surrounding soil while it grows, actively improving land around it. and the seeds stay viable without refrigeration for 5 years, meaning you're not dependent on immediate processing or cold chain infrastructure that most of these communities don't have. Here is the cruel irony of where Moringa stands today. The wellness industry discovered it and immediately figured out how to sell it without threatening anything. You can buy Moringa powder at Whole Foods for $25 a pound. The same leaves that grow free across 46 countries, dried, packaged, and positioned as a premium supplement for people who already have clean water, reliable food, and electricity. The global Moringa market is projected to reach $5.6 billion by 2028. The industry promotes the antioxidants and the nutritional profile because those are safe. It carefully, deliberately never mentions the fuel, never mentions the water purification. Vitamin deficiencies are safe to solve. You can sell a capsule for that. The tree gets repackaged as a luxury item for the people who need it least. While the communities who built 4,000 years of knowledge around it watch their land get cleared for export crops. I want to be clear. I'm not claiming there's a room somewhere where executives gathered and decided to suppress Moringa. What I'm describing is something more mundane and, in some ways, more troubling. A set of economic incentives so deeply built into international development infrastructure that they produce the same outcome as suppression without anyone having to intend it. USAID, the World Bank, the IMF. These institutions weren't chartered by Rockefeller personally, but they were built in an era when petroleum dependency was the default operating assumption of modernity, and they still run on that assumption. Solutions that can't be metered, patented, or sold at markup don't travel well through institutions that run on project funding. The tree doesn't need a budget. That's the problem. Moringa never disappeared. It still grows wild across India, where families harvest leaves weekly without ever having heard the word superfood. In Kenya, women's cooperatives press seeds for cooking oil using hand presses that haven't changed in 200 years. In Haiti, it was planted after the 2010 earthquake by aid organizations that understood its fast growth rate and soil-stabilizing roots, reaching 15 feet in the first year, putting leaf mass back into a landscape that had none. Dr. Lowell Fugli, a researcher who spent years documenting Moringa use across sub-Saharan Africa for Church World Service, found in the early 2000s that in communities where Moringa was consistently planted and harvested, child malnutrition rates dropped measurably within a growing season. Not across decades of development programming. It's within one growing season from one tree crop. Right now, we are spending trillions of dollars on 3 simultaneous crises: energy, food, and water. We are told the solutions require rare earth minerals, supply chains running through the Congo, and grid infrastructure costing hundreds of billions to build. And growing on marginal land across the tropics, asking nothing of any of that infrastructure, is a tree that addresses all 3, not as a grid-scale solution, but as a functional, field-tested technology for the 2.2 billion people. The World Health Organization identifies as lacking safely managed drinking water. They are not waiting on a desalination contract. They need something that works in a clay pot, in a village without electricity, today. I started this research because I kept seeing the same nutritional claims on packaging and wanted to know if any of it was actually documented. What I found, working back through the peer-reviewed literature, was that the packaging was underselling it. The nutritional data is real and in the USDA database. The water purification mechanism has a named protein with a Swiss Prot accession number. The cetane number is in a 2008 journal. The knowledge didn't disappear. It just wasn't in the places where we were told to look. If this research opened something for you, subscribe to Timeless Nature Wisdom and ring the notification bell. Every share, every comment, every conversation this starts. That's how this kind of knowledge travels now. The next archive opens soon.